Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment of Jersey Boy Sports Talk. I'm Nick Bogatis, along with CB Garrett. How you doing out there, CB?
I'm great. I missed the show for a couple weeks. Great to be back. Long hiatus. Yeah, feels a lot longer than it probably was.
Great to have you back. We're missing Snowball tonight, but how much do we value his opinion anyway? Just kidding. But Snowball's taking a lot of shots at me, so we'll be sure to do some of that tonight. Sorry we're a little bit late, but it took so much time to narrow down our 8 seeds in our NBA preview. We'll be getting to that later on in the show.
More like Nick's computer doesn't like to work when it needs to.
Alright, and I was having trouble deciding between two teams that shall not be named until later. But we are the only show that skipped trick-or-treating last night to watch the NBA.
Or watch our high school football game.
Okay, CB watched his high school football team. My high school doesn't have a football. I will complain about that every week until we get one. Tonight, call-in number is 862-400-6461. We are so jam-packed with the NBA that there is no Joel Embiid Memorial segment, so no need to worry about that. But you can call in, text in with any of your questions. Like us on Facebook, Jersey Boy Sports Talk with Nick Bogatis, CB Garrett, and Matt Stolboff, and our Twitter, as always, is at JB Sports Talk. So, before we get to our NBA preview, our Garden State Sharks, all that, we do have a couple headlines to cover. First of all, we didn't get to cover this last week because our show's on Saturday. This happened, I think it was Sunday. Cardinals, he was a top prospect, Oscar Tavares, passed away. He died in a car accident back home with his girlfriend. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with his family and hers as well. Just a devastating loss for the Cardinals organization. He was just an extremely talented player. I know CB, you watched him a lot.
Yeah, as a person who is a big prospector, especially with baseball cards, I know obviously the most important thing is that lives were lost in this crash, but the Cardinals was a very valuable part of the franchise if you want to look at it from that perspective. He was a career .320 hitter in the minors. Did not hit right away when they brought him up this year. He had 3 home runs, hit .240 in about 80 games. Not all of those starting. But he was poised to be one of the top outfielders in baseball. He was right up there with Gregory Blanco as one of the top outfield prospects in baseball. Blanco plays for the Pirates now. They're both expected to, within the next year or two, sort of take off a la Mike Trout. Not necessarily the power from Tavares that Trout has, but he's going to be a high average hitter, probably hit the 310, 315 range. Possesses speed, a little bit of speed in the outfield. Not going to steal a ton of bases, but definitely covers the outfield well. And not a high strikeout guy either. His highest total in any season was 56 in the minors, which is not at all a lot. So he's definitely he's a very sweet swing, probably one of the best swings in all of the minors. It's going to be a big loss for their organization looking forward, as he was supposed to be a cornerstone of the organization for the next 10 to 12 years.
And you know what? I like that you brought that up because it's really sad that we look at it in terms of what the Cardinals lost as if he was just a free agent. Look, I don't know that much about his life outside of baseball. Obviously, it's very sad for a kid to pass away that young.
And there hasn't really been that much out on the cause of death, other than the fact that it was a car crash. We still don't really know if there's alcohol or anything involved to this point. I'm sure that's something we'll probably find out down the road. But either way, it's still a very sad situation.
So yeah, just to bring that to your attention, we don't, obviously we're not close. We were not close with Oscar Tavares or the girlfriend. We don't have that much information, but still something important to bring to your attention. And baseball suffered a big loss. And then also to mention, the Michigan athletic director Dave Brandon. He resigned actually yesterday afternoon. Obviously, a big scandal with, if you want to call it a scandal, with the concussion. Quarterback came in supposedly too early after being evaluated for a concussion. CB, what does this mean for Brady Hoke?
Either way, it doesn't mean it doesn't look very good for Brady Hoke. More and more, even as Michigan starts to turn around a little bit this season, it appears that everyone's already come to the foregone conclusion that Brady Hoke's going to be fired this year. Team's not having a good season. Ever since Hoke took over and had an 11-2 season his first year, the team has been spiraling downwards in terms of win totals, and it's going to struggle to be bowl eligible this year. And then more and more people are thinking that early good success was because of all of the players that Rich Rodriguez brought in before he was jettisoned out of Michigan. And now we're getting into the Hoke recruited players, and they're not succeeding as a Michigan fan base expects. And they're all putting Hoke's earlier success on the fact that Rich Rodriguez recruited most, if not all, of those players to be in their organization, and the players that he was able to recruit did a great job. And now that those players are gone, they've not been able to have the success, as with the exception of bringing in one of the top cornerbacks from Jersey this year. They really haven't done a lot from the recruiting perspective recently.
Yeah, and
of course being Jabril Peppers.
Yeah. They actually have been turning around. They beat Indiana 34-10. Now they're 4-5. I mean, I said this before. I don't think this would have been a big deal, this whole concussion thing, if A, it wasn't Michigan, and B, they weren't doing so terribly. Brady Hoke was, like you said, Brady Hoke was going to be fired regardless of this. But I still think it's interesting that he chose to step down. Because I was wondering how much of a role he actually played in it. I wouldn't imagine the athletic director was on the field for that.
Yeah, it's tough to personally. It's tough to blame an athletic director for a person being put back in for concussion when there's should be multiple team doctors, and then the coach he has to go through. And we later found out that wasn't the case, and that they didn't have the proper protocol. And now whether that's completely Dave Brandon's fault or administrations before him who did not put in the proper policies, we realize that it's outdated, and it took something like the Stephen Morris being put back in there with the concussion for them to change their policy and put team doctors on the field and have concussion spotters up in the press box. But it's definitely outdated no matter what it was, and just all the pressure from especially the students who forced him out. That was the biggest thing. It wasn't as much as it was from the sports world in general. It was all the students at Michigan who were really rioting against him, and that's what really, in the end, ultimately forced him to step down.
Completely agree with you there. So actually, while we're at it, we might as well just get all the bad news out of the way. Maryland and Penn State today. I didn't actually see this when it happened. CB, did you actually catch the game? I know you're a Penn State fan.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of it. They got a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for not shaking hands before the game. It's probably one of the most obscure things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, so what had happened was Maryland and Penn State had a big fight before the game. No one exactly knows what it was about. And then Maryland refused to shake hands with Penn State after the coin toss. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm not sure exactly what it was about, but it seems to have been a legitimate argument. What were you gonna say?
The Maryland program has been pretty upset with the reaction that those captains went out and did. The Penn State captains are on the record saying it was awkward putting their hands out there and then the Maryland players unwilling to shake their hands. But it's just something that I think is completely unsportsmanlike and unnecessary. And the Maryland athletic director, Coach Randy Edsall, agrees. But I just think that it's just something that's just completely unnecessary. I mean, if you want to go out and be tough guys and not be nice on the field, that's great. But the pregame handshake, that's not going to kill you. And it's just part of sports, Captains always shake hands before sporting events. You always shake hands with the other team after the game. I just think this is something that is completely uncalled for and an unnecessary way to make a statement about how you feel about a team. It just makes you look bad. And especially as a program who's trying to look for some credibility, I just think this was not what they needed.
See, that's where I disagree with you. I think if it was something significant, which I'm assuming it was, um, as a coach, I would support that 100%. A couple years back, I actually played on AAU team. There was an argument with one team in a previous game that involved some racial slurs, and we decided as a team we weren't shaking their hands. So I would back that. Um, I'm assuming the 15-yard penalty was assessed on the kickoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that really doesn't mean much. It's going to be a touchback anyway. Um, I'd back that if I was Maryland. Unless it's something stupid that the fight was
Well,
about.
Penn State got the ball first, so it didn't matter there.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say it didn't matter. It actually did end up mattering. Penn State got a field goal on that first drive, but ended up losing 20-19. So
Okay. Well, they got it wasn't that big of a deal. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we're not completely positive why they didn't shake hands at all. There's some speculation that it could have been to James Franklin sort of trash talking the Maryland program and saying, "quote they might as well shut them down because they don't have a chance in the off season." That's some speculation as to what it was about, but we're not completely sure. I just think this is something that was just completely unnecessary by the Maryland players.
So yeah, I'm assuming it was something again. I'm assuming there was something significant about the disagreement, and I would think the Maryland coach has a little bit more insight on this, and I would think he's behind his players, provided it's not some stupid fifth grade argument. So aside from that, last piece of bad news for you: Tony Romo. Now they've officially diagnosed him. It is his back. There's two separate injuries, I believe, to Romo.
It's called two fractured transverse process in his back. I'm not a doctor at all. Certainly don't know what a transverse process is, but either way, it doesn't sound good. They say it's not bad fracture, and there's still a good chance that he. I shouldn't say good chance, but there's still a chance that he could play tomorrow. It's not supposed to be related to the injury he suffered last season, where he ended up needing to get back surgery. But it's still something you have to watch out with now. His second back injury in the past 2 seasons, and there is one comparison to this from this year. Baylor quarterback Bryce Petty suffered a similar injury. He only missed 1 game, but we're still unsure whether Tony Romo will play or not tomorrow. He has not practiced all week and is listed as questionable. So that's all I know on the issue.
Yeah, Whedon has taken all the first team snaps this week. They're playing Arizona, so you'd figure the Cowboys are already at a disadvantage. CB, if you're Jason Garrett, do you bench Tony Romo tomorrow if he can play?
I do not think so. I don't think that they have a chance to win without Tony Romo. We watched Brandon Whedon be, for the most part, a very incompetent quarterback in his tenure in Cleveland. He was effective in his times back last week, but I don't think he's a quarterback that you want to really rely on in such a big game against such a good defense in Arizona. I think they need Tony Romo to really have a chance of winning this game. They got to take what they can get from him if he's able to play. If he's not able to play, you obviously don't want to risk it. They're going to have a much more important game. Obviously, every game is important, especially going against a team where they could be fighting for the number 1 overall seed if they're able to win this game in Arizona Cardinals. But winning the division is by far more important because they're going to play the Philadelphia Eagles with the same record as them right now on Thanksgiving, and they want to make sure he's fully healthy for that game when they have division implications on the line.
Now, what my only argument for this is, I feel like the Cowboys are already at a disadvantage against the Cardinals. I would think rest Tony Romo, wait for him to be 100%. Like you said, Bryce Petty only missed a game with this injury. So if you want to rest Romo an extra week, get him to 100%. You're a half game up on the Eagles, who play the Texans,